Yes, what's going on, peeps? We are back in the building. Today, we are here to talk about Curtis Jones, man. Big up to everybody. Make sure you're smashing the like, sharing, and subscribing. As I mentioned before, man, we're here to talk about Curtis Jones. Obviously, you saw the thumbnail saying what next, and I think it's an interesting one with Curtis Jones. I do believe I have over the past few seasons that he's obviously been in the squad. I feel like I have been harsh on Jones at times, and other times I feel like I've not been harsh enough, to be honest with you. And this season, that's not going to change. That is definitely not going to change. I think Curtis Jones, in terms of as a player, how I rate him is as an actual just footballer, I think he's a baller in terms of the attributes that he's got. He's someone I think he's fantastic on the ball. He's got a real calmness and composure about his game. Now, obviously, there's the other side to it that, of course, we don't always really like in terms of at times we might feel that he holds on to the ball a little bit too long. And that I can totally agree with. But in a general sense, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, he's exhibiting a skill set that I think that maybe at first I didn't really want to see it, in terms of the player that he was when he came through the academy and all that kind of stuff. But now when I'm actually thinking about it and I'm deep in it, I'm like, you know what? I do think that this might be the type of player that I could potentially be talking about when I'm speaking on, the types of midfielders I'd like to see in the team and etc. Now, obviously, it's not always going to be on him necessarily because the manager needs to go out there, trust him, and be able to play, in this kind of certain way. But I am looking at Jones a lot more, especially because I don't know what Liverpool are necessarily going to do in the transfer market when it does come to the midfield kind of area. So I am looking at things and thinking, okay, if we're not going to sign anybody in that area because we feel that we've already got the bodies and the numbers, who can do that kind of role? And you guys already know the role, and we're going to take a look at that role in a second, in regards to like the Pedris and the Vitinhas and these type of guys, right? Because I just believe in that type of player always seems to be like a common denominator when we're talking about sides who go out there and they dominate, over a sustained period of time. They always seem to have that one player. And I know I keep harping on about it in terms of when we're talking about signings and everyone's like, yeah, but we need a midfielder, we need a defender. I'm not dismissing those. Yeah, I mean, I'm good if we get those, but the one part of the team that I feel that we're missing, and you can call it a DM or whatever, I'm not even calling it that. That's why I've steered away from saying we need a DM. I don't think it's about we need a DM. I think we need a midfielder. What that midfielder then does will then determine what it is, Liverpool need and what it is Liverpool need to do moving forward. But at this current moment in time, I wouldn't necessarily call that a DM. I don't look at Vitinha or Pedri as a DM, but they operate in those areas. They operate further forward. They operate in the middle. So it's not about a specific position. It's not about, yeah, it needs to be an attacking midfielder, even though I know we've got Florian Wirtz, but it's not necessarily about that. It is about what is the role that you're going to be given. And in terms of what I'm talking about more selfishly, what I want, because I feel that would help us along the way on top of everything that we've gotten. That's the one thing that I feel we don't have at all, at this moment in time. And in Curtis Jones, I feel like we've got the player who can potentially do that if you asked him to do that, but we're not asking him to do that. So then it's like, oh, okay. So what is it we're asking you to do? And obviously, this is just his heat map from last season. Again, listen, look, Jones is Jones at the end of the day, innit? Like he operates in so many different positions, left central midfield. He could play on the wing, as a part of a four, or as one of the wingers, in the team. He's operated at right back as well, for both England and Liverpool in the past. So he's a versatile individual. He can play DM. He's played DM for England under 21s as well. He's played in midfield, of course. So there's so many different things I feel someone like Curtis Jones can actually do. And again, I would much prefer if we signed this person. But if you're not going to sign them, we've got to start thinking solutions. And I feel like the quicker you get your head wrapped around certain players and certain solutions, the easier it will, that kind of transition will obviously be once the season obviously starts. So, yeah, I mean, for Curtis Jones, it's like I said, it is a weird one because last season, 33 games in the Premier League, 19 of those were obviously starts. He's only averaging around 53 minutes per game. He's going to want to up that. He's 24, I believe, 24 years of age. I think he is. Yeah, I think he was born in 2001, 2001. So he's about 24 years of age. You know, he's getting on. Yeah, do you know what I mean? In football terms, not in life. In football terms, he's getting on. I think his birthday is in Jan. So in Jan, it'll be about 25. So we're saying, 24, 25. This kind of needs to be the big season. Sometimes you talk about certain players and in terms of like their development and stuff like that. I'm not, when I say big season, I'm not talking I need you to perform like Lamine Yamal, like that would be sick. But I'm not even talking of those kind of levels. But I am talking of when are you going to start showing everybody that you are on your peers level. So when I say peers, I'm looking at the Vitinhas. I'm looking not even Pedri because Pedri is actually 3 years younger or 2 to 3 years younger than he is. So yeah, when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, okay, but peers within your age kind of bracket. Forget the Jude Bellinghams, obviously, because he's been kind of destined for whatever he's doing at this moment in time for such a long time. I am talking more about the individuals that we've looked at when Jones was coming through. So again, you're looking at like the Phil Fodens and stuff like that. I mean, Palmer's come not out of nowhere, but he's kind of come and he's almost, I don't want to say overtaken you, but in terms of the way that if people were to rank like a list of players, their top 50 players or whatever, who would come out ahead, and I feel like Cole Palmer would come out ahead of a Curtis Jones. I feel Foden would also do the same. Now they've also both been given the opportunity by their respective managers in order for them to kind of come in every now and again and learn their trade, so to speak. Obviously, Cole Palmer when he was at Manchester City coming off the bench, but now you then give him a starting role. You then say you are the man. And can he run with it? Cole Palmer decided to run with it. Phil Foden, he ran with it last season, not a great season, but you can see this is another top quality player who can, should I say, perform at a very, very high level consistently. At this moment in time, I look at Jones and I'm like, I don't know if it's just because I say we, but Arne Slot or Jurgen Klopp previously, they've asked you to do so many different things that it's almost like I feel like you're confused. You originally come through, and we always talk about this. You originally came through as someone who was a more attack-minded individual, playing in that number 10 left wing kind of position, sometimes even up front for the youth side. No problem. Obviously, that's academy football, that's youth football. So obviously, we now step up into the men's team. Once you step up there, it's they were trying to fit you in somewhere, and it was always you were never really going to make the team because you didn't really fit what it was that Jurgen Klopp wanted. Now Arne Slot's come in. The football is probably what you want, but the role, I don't feel like at this moment in time, it's a kind of role that we're seeing the best from you. Whether he likes it or not, I don't really know. But when I'm watching him play, and I see him play for England, and more so for the under 21s, but then I see him play for England, the senior team, and I'm looking at the way that he is playing, and then I'm looking at these other players that we all laud, rightly so, by the way, because these are top players. We all laud them, but I'm looking at it thinking, but Jones can do that though. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to put Jones in any type of pedestal, by the way, because I don't think he's operating at those kind of levels. What I am trying to get at is that I feel that he is a player who can potentially get to those kind of levels. Whether he does or not, obviously we'll have to, of course, wait and see. But yeah, I'm looking at him and I'm just like, when we're looking at your attributes and everything that you can bring to a team, I think big up Jerry, because I'm sure we've said this before many a time. If he was playing for Manchester City under Pep Guardiola, I think he'd be one of the best midfielders, especially English anyway. He'd definitely be the top midfielder in England, 100%. 100%. Well, getting a player like that, playing with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Gundogan, and Kovacic, Haaland, and all of these kind of ballers in the team, crazy. With the kind of football that they play, yeah, that's made for someone like Jones. And that's where I'm looking at Jones and I'm like, I need you, like I said, you're 24. Now we're going into you're turning 25, by the end of this season. I need you to go to a next level now. I need to know that this level that you're at now, obviously not every player can reach, crazy heights. I get that. But when we're talking about a team for Liverpool, I need you to hit some kind of heights. I don't feel like you can just keep kind of plodding along, always being that guy where it's like, yeah, he's all right, kind of thing, and you're just floating. I want you to elevate because I feel like that would be good for Liverpool. That would be good from an academy aspect. It would be just good for just us in general. Do you know what I mean? And also, good for him. And this goes back to, what I was saying about we're just giving him any type of role, any type of job. Look at the position. This is last season, by the way. Do you know what I mean? This is your last. No, sorry. This has been his time at Liverpool. In the Liverpool first team, these are the positions that he's operated in. I mean, it's everywhere. Right back, centre mid, DM, attacking mid, second striker. Heck, apparently played up front, left wing, left midfield. Like the guy's playing it. What is your position, broski? Now, obviously, central midfield is being highlighted as the one that, yeah, that's your natural position. But like I said, I remember you being the second striker, the left winger. That's where I felt like, yo, we're getting, he's looking mad. I felt like he was the left wing version of a Cole Palmer is today. That's the way I looked at him. How Cole Palmer is today for Chelsea is on the right side is exactly how I looked at someone like Curtis Jones, just on the left hand side. And if he was being used like that, like I say, and this is what we talk about in terms of development and should a player leave, should a player stay, stuff like that. Curtis Jones, we're in that position now with Curtis Jones. We're totally in that, that kind of position. Last season, obviously played 46 games, got 2,438 minutes. When I divided it, I think it worked out to be, was it around about 27 games or something like that? I think it's roughly around about 27. Like if you divided it by 90, it's about 27 games he's played, let's say full games, this last season just gone. Is that enough? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that enough? It looks great because you're like, oh, 33 games in the Prem and 8 in the Champions League, but is that enough? Because as we saw before, most of them are coming off the bench anyway. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And that's not the role that I think he feels he should be at. And that's why, obviously, when we spoke about like Harvey Elliott previously and stuff like that, right? Harvey Elliott, obviously, kind of saying, he needs to kind of make a decision, on in regards to what he wants to do. Now, Curtis Jones is a lot closer to first team in terms of he can rotate in and out, and the manager feels comfortable clearly enough for him to be able to do that. But ultimately, it's like I look at like a Ryan Gravenberg. It's almost like he surpassed you, and I'm like, bro, like too many players have just come in, and we're almost not that we don't need you, because I don't want to say it like that, but it's almost like, well, we signed McAllister, Zabozalai, Gravenberg, Wataru Endo. Forget, like, let's take out Endo. We signed those 3 midfielders, and they've that's now the midfield, so to speak. Where's Curtis Jones in all this? And that's when I'm looking at it and thinking, eesh. It, like, remember, Curtis Jones already had to contend with the Fabinhos, the Hendersons, the Ginnies, when he was coming through, right? Caters and all these other guys. So he's already had that one battle. Yeah. He's already had that one battle in order for him to be able to get into the team. Obviously, as I mentioned before, playing on the left wing, but obviously Sadio Mane was there, and the type of winger that he was never going to get into that position. No worries. Now we've got a new set of players, and you're kind of getting in, like you're closer than you was before, but it's like we're still kind of waiting. So I'm like, when are you gonna push? Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm not advocating for him to leave, by the way. I don't really want him to leave. I feel like, nah, keep Curtis Jones. I feel that he can at least offer me something close to what I'm looking for, in my kind of midfielders and stuff like that. But I am looking at Jones, and I'm starting to, I'm kind of looking at it thinking, bro, as I mean, the top 3 there, McAllister, Ryan Gravenberg, Zabozalai, Endo, heck, Trey might start making some noise, and all of a sudden now it just starts getting a little bit awkward, just a little bit awkward. And I don't really want Jones to be in that kind of position, because I don't really feel that he's a player that should be in this kind of position. I look at him and I think, surely you should be in a position now where you're, starting to cement yourself as like a first team player. You're cementing yourself as an individual who can take his game to that next level. You're not putting yourself, at a level where it's, I wouldn't even call it mediocre, but just a level where it's, like I said, you're just kind of plodding along, so to speak. So I would love to know, obviously, people's thoughts, in the comment section. So obviously, I wanted to just quickly take a look at how he kind of compares to some of those other players that we do talk about. So, like I mentioned before, the Pedris, the Vitinhas, etc., etc. What does that look like, for someone, like a Curtis Jones, in a general sense? And again, it's just a kind of, I'm not trying to put him up on their kind of pedestal, but I am telling him, or I am looking at it thinking, yo, there is another level that we, or myself, I do feel that you can possibly get to. This is that kind of level. Are you close to that level? Are you exhibiting the same things as guys who are on that kind of level. So obviously, I wanted to just quickly take a look at what he then looks like in comparison to those guys, and then also have a look what he then compares to the players, in our team anyway. So when we're looking at it, so this is obviously a comparison. And I said, guys, take this with a pinch of salt. Don't get too testy about this. You know what I mean? Like, I know that for some people, this is like your favorite player. And I know some people look at it and think, how can you compare? It's not necessarily about, I think he's on that kind of level. But when I'm talking about the type of player that I would like to see in the team, he is very close to that. So in my head, I'm like, okay, well, then let's see what that then looks like in a comparison, so to speak. So obviously we're looking here. So we've got Pedri in the middle, Vitinha on the right is the third one, and then obviously Curtis Jones is the first one up. Yeah, I mean, I've done it, was it per 90? So let's see, man. I mean, passes attempted. I mean, Pedri's obviously attempting 83, Vitinha 104. Yo, and these times we get onto Curtis Jones, crazy. Passes completed. I mean, yeah. I mean, passes attempted. At least if you look at his accuracy, it's 93%, which is actually he's just under a Vitinha. Yeah, Vitinha, who's 93.75. He's 93.67 with Pedri just behind both of those two players. But they're obviously attempting a lot more. Anyway, long passes. I mean, long passes attempted 6.58. Curtis Jones 1.9. Again, someone who likes to keep the ball. He's not necessarily always going to look for that long pass, but it's kind of crazy that these two are, putting out a lot. Through balls 0.2, 0.9, and 0.6. So again, the gap is relatively big. This is obviously per 90 minutes. Forward passes. I mean, Curtis Jones 12.6. Pedri would be 20.4, and then Vitinha 22.8. Backward passes, sideways passes. So yeah, tackles made, duels contested, so he comes out on top there. Take-ons completed. He's in third place. Success, third place. Ground duels. I mean, yo, when we look, it's funny because when you look at stuff like this, in your head, you're just like, this is why these guys are elite. Like, this is why these guys are considered to be elite, So if Jones can just, if Jones can then, if the manager starts asking Jones to do this, I think he can do it. I think he's the only midfielder we've got in the team who can do what Vitinha, Pedri, are obviously doing. Possession loss, he loses at least, obviously. Touches in opposition box, that's quite interesting. 3.4 per 90 minutes in comparison to the 1.7s from Pedri and Vitinha. So, I mean, I even look at the total just to make it look hopefully somewhat better, but I don't think it's gonna look any better. Yeah, I mean, look at the total. Totals are kind of mad. Passes attempted. Bro, these men are playing double the amounts of passes. Jesus Christ. I rate Jones because his passing accuracy is good. He is someone that you can see that his passing accuracy is good. But Jesus. I mean, long passes, Jesus. Yeah, he's not attempting hardly any. Through balls. That's kind of interesting. Only 2 through balls. That's mad. That's mad. What, in the whole of last season, he only played 2 through balls? Right, what is Arne Slot even getting man to do though? Fucking hell. Jules contested. Pedri's contesting more. Yeah, I mean, take on success. I mean, outside of possession loss and touches in opposition box, I think he loses every other metric. Yeah, he doesn't win any apart from those last 2. So, yeah, I mean, listen, stylistically, I think he's relatively close, but I mean, statistically, he's not even close to these men, which is mad to think. Hence why I say, I would much prefer if Liverpool just went out and signed someone. I do think that would prove to be a better use of our funds and the money, obviously, moving forward. But if we're just talking stylistically, I do believe that, Curtis Jones, is kind of necessarily, he's closer to that anyway, in my personal opinion. But of course, it will all just depend on what Arne Slot really gets his team, and what he wants his team to actually do. Now, let's take a look how the midfield kind of compares, to. So when we're looking at it, let's get that up. All right, cool. So this is Curtis Jones, Gravenberch, McAllister, and Dominic Szoboszlai. Let's see how these guys compare. Let's see how he compares now amongst his peers. Passes attempted, passes completed, passing accuracy obviously is all better. Open play passes, he's doing more. Passes completed in opposition half, yep. Duels contested. A little bit bigger for you guys. Ground duels contested. Who's that? Who's got the most? McAllister. I don't know. McAllister. Possession lost. He's doing it the least. Touches in opposition box. Who's that got the most? Dominic Szoboszlai. Would make sense. Ball recoveries 5.2, which puts him in second place. Joint. Ground duel success. Take on success. Take ons completed. Forward passes, backward passes. So yeah, in terms of on the ball stuff, it looks like, yeah, on the ball stuff, he seems to be obviously just a little bit better, but then it's quite spread out quite evenly, really, between the other three midfielders that obviously we're taking a look at. So yeah, man, I just think it's a stylistic thing when it does come to, someone like Curtis Jones. I do think, like I said before, I am wanting him to take his game to the next level. The fact that in terms of statistically, he's so far off of, the Vitinhas and Pedris is quite astounding, if I'm being honest, because the way I always looked at him was like, you could be someone who could potentially do that kind of role and, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, man, I need to see, like I said, this season, I need to see you go up to that next level. Whatever that next level is, I just need to see you go there, because if you're going to kind of mingle in and around this kind of area, and like I said, you've got those kind of players who are out there, and I just use Vitinha and Pedri just to show you guys the levels anyway. But when I'm actually just looking at it, there are loads of players who are quite similar in terms of stylistically. So I need you to pattern up, but then at the same time, I also need Arne Slot to play in this kind of way. Now that's going to require quite a few things, but I feel that that's the best way to continue dominance for the time being, alongside having your physical specimens and your athletes in the team, and your Mo Salahs and Florian Wirtzes and these kind of players. So yeah, for me, I just want to know, people in the chat, let me know what you guys think in regards to Curtis Jones. How do you see him next season, in terms of his role within the team? How do you think he's going to perform, next season? Do you think this is a massive season for him, in terms of, is this the season that you're like, all right, at the end of this season, I can come to that kind of conclusion as to where I rank you, how I rate you, and et cetera, et cetera? Let me know your thoughts, man, in the comment section, people, about Curtis Jones, and I'll catch you guys soon, man. Peace.